violated its clear and predictable regulatory environment. And it was found that, in fact, the Mexican government did violate their clear and predictable regulatory environment, and they had to pay $15.6 million to the US corporation. Two more quick examples. In 2008, Canada put a temporary ban on PCB exports. So PCBs, many of you may know, are a group of man-made chemicals that are found to pose really serious health and serious risks to health and the environment. So there was a US waste treatment company that was called SD Myers. They challenged the Canadian government's ban, saying it would affected their future profits, and Canada had to pay $5 million to the US corporation. The US corporation won. Another quick example, 2008, US chemical company called Ethel challenged a Canadian environmental ban on a gasoline additive. Canada wound up settling. They reversed the ban. They paid $13 million in damages to Ethel. I think we're going to do questions at the end, but I think I'll also just note the trend of, as much of a risk as it is for foreign corporations to challenge US laws and policies, the bigger trend has been US multinationals wreaking havoc on other countries' laws and policies. So dozens of other cases that I could speak to, hundreds of other cases, but the point is pretty clear. It's a corporate power agenda. It's their agenda. It's very much not our agenda. So fracking is one of what Sierra Club calls the dirtiest little secrets of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. And before going right into fracking, I want to take a step back and just talk a little bit about natural gas exports, and that's how it all links up in the TPP. So the price for natural gas in the United States has fallen dramatically. It's fallen in large part because of fracking. There's been more supply. Corporations still want to keep fracking, but they want to get more money for it. So they're looking to continue fracking, continue getting natural gas, but they want to sell it to other export. They want to export it to other markets because they can get a lot more money outside of the United States for it. Exporting natural gas is an incredibly dirty process that goes far beyond fracking. It starts with fracking. That's how, of course, you extract the gas. But then you need to build hundreds of miles of pipelines in many cases to coast. You need to build new terminals, often on public lands through estuaries. And then you need to cool the gas, and you need to liquefy the gas in order to transport it. So altogether, this whole process is found to have a carbon footprint even higher than coal by some estimates. So how does this relate to the TPP? Normally, if a terminal wants to export natural gas, it has to go through the Department of Energy. And the Department of Energy has to offer what's referred to as a public interest determination and determine whether those exports are in the interest of the American public. And we can debate about whether those exports would ever be in the interest of the American public, but at least there's a process to evaluate that and to look at that. Except if the United States has a free trade agreement with another country that calls for what's referred to as national treatment for trade in gas. And if it does have a free trade agreement with another country, those exports are automatically deemed in the public interest. The Department of Energy has no ability to examine, regulate, halt, slow, stop those exports. Now, this has never been a major issue because the United States has never signed free trade agreements in the past with major importers of natural gas. This changed a little bit because we signed one with Korea recently, and Korea is an importer. But the TPP includes a number of countries that are net importers of natural gas. And as Elisa mentioned, Japan is considering joining the TPP, which would be the #1 importer of gas in the world. So it could be a green light, a fast-track process to a tremendous amount of natural gas without any public review process whatsoever. So this fast-track process, more exports, means that we're going to need more gas. And how are we going to get more gas? We're going to frack for more gas. So it's a little bit of a circular story there, but that's how the TPP would remove the Department of Energy from any regulatory process of reviewing exports, which would pave the way for more fracking. So we don't know what's in this agreement exactly, but we certainly know enough to know that this is an agreement that we are never going to be able to support and that we're going to need to build massive public opposition to. It's going to be a huge road to build because of the great secrecy. You guys are in the few that really know that this is even happening. So we look forward to talking more about how we can work with you to get out the word and build our movement around this.
Thank you, Alana. How's everyone doing? Is everyone really freaked out? Disgusted? Depressed? Great, there's more. Okay, next we have Manuel Perez Rocha. You're welcome. He helps coordinate a project called the Network for Justice and Global Investment, working with allies in Bolivia and organizations in several countries. He does a great deal more than you can find in the bio sheet that we don't have on your chair. Sorry, it was in the script.
It's on the chairs. I put them there personally.
So sorry. My apologies. Stephanie, thank you. She did put them on the chairs. My bad, personally. Okay. Manuel will go into greater depth about free trade agreements, or FTAs, and investor rights provisions, looking at Doe Run in Peru and other cases where investor group not only abdicated responsibility for poisoning a population, but then turned around and sued the government and the people of Peru for what they termed damages, and attempted to continue their toxic operations. Manuel.
Thank you. I have a presentation. I don't know if you can put the first slide there. Oh, there was a previous one? Oh, okay. Well, this is just a presentation of my organization, the IPS, the Institute for Policy Studies in Washington. And this is the network. Yeah.
That's good.
The network I work with, the Network for Justice and Global Investment, which is an effort of organizations all over the hemisphere mainly, but we're also connecting with Europeans and in other countries to challenge the most anti-democratic aspects of the global economic order, which are precisely the rules that govern international investment. Before you keep on wondering where I'm from, I'll tell you I'm from Mexico. I have worked many years with the Mexican Action Network on Free Trade, fighting NAFTA and other free trade agreements, and now I live here, and I'm very happy working here in the Institute for Policy Studies in Washington. This is a huge turnout, as my other two colleagues that work in Washington with us, you may agree that it would be very difficult to get such a turnout in Washington on a Friday evening. So I'm very happy to be here in New York City. I'm going to speak a little bit more about the impacts that the TPP would have in other countries, in other poorer countries, from the experience that we already have with US free trade agreements. Latin America, as you know, one of the big successes that we had, our organizations, was fighting the Free Trade Agreement of the Americas, the FTAA, in 2005. Since then, Latin America has been undergoing a process of greater integration amongst our countries. However, what the TPP does is break a very sharp line between countries that have a free trade agreement with the United States or countries that don't have a free trade agreement of the United States, or countries that have succeeded in breaking with the hegemony of the United States, and countries that want to continue, well, the governments want to continue under that hegemony. So what we have here in the negotiating the TPP are Mexico, which is already part of NAFTA, Peru, Chile, and Colombia. Ecuador is an exception, and Bolivia as well. But mainly, we have two blocks being formed in Latin America. Those that want to continue with the free trade model, and those that want to break with that. Well, this is a map of the United States free trade agreements. As you see, there are many in negotiation, but it's very difficult that this will happen. This Ecuador, Brazil, Argentina, because they have very different policies. They don't want investment rules. They don't want greater investor rights. And what we have here is the TPP countries, and as well as these that already have a free trade agreement with the US. This is the process of integration in Latin America that I was telling you about, and that the TPP will divide basically in countries towards the Atlantic and countries towards the Pacific. One of the problems that we're experiencing, and well, I'm going to try to go fast because there's a lot of text there, but what we're experiencing in Latin America is the increase in extractive industries, in the exploitation of our natural resources by mining companies, oil companies, gas companies, many of them from Canada, from the United States, and many of the countries even that have disengaged or have broken from US hegemony are anyway opening up their countries to a very sharp increase of this type of very damaging, environmentally damaging investments.